back. Trout junk fishing on our reefs. Rods on the deck. Starting out with top water. 3 different sizes. At some point we'll follow up with a free rig. We'll talk about just basic little jig and straight tail, finessing. And that big old 6.5 inch zoom wing fluke on a wide gap. See if any big growth up close. That's the rocks. Fishing one of the bigger gaps in the rocks here. A lot more current coming through here. Side scanned it. Saw some fish on it. There's one just bit right there. Just like that. The fish are feeding, they're feeding. It's a decent trout on a big old zoom winged fluke. Ooh, look them go. Not a bad trout. Look how fat that fish is. If you want to see how he choked it, look at that. God. Down the hatch. Look at that. 6.5 inch bait. 18 inch fish. It's a good fish. It's the zoom wing fluke on a wide gap. Fishing a reef like this, there's quite a few zones that fish could be inhabiting. One is right up against the rocks, all that rebar and structure down there, down below the surface. There's also the 9 to 10 foot range, the sandy, clean bottom off the reef extending way out. There's the mid-water column. There's even certain structures that jut out perpendicular that create up currents where fish will hang out mid-water column. There's a different technique and different lures I utilize to try to hit all those different areas to try to establish a bite. With this winged fluke on a weighted wide gap, the weedless wide gap, I'm able to get this down in the rocks, into that structure, and try to pick off fish that might be willing to eat up close. You smoked that one. It's a good fish. Oh, he got off. Oh, he's still on. Still on. Stay down. It's a nice trout. Boy, he's fighting hard. Pretty fish. Back in. Try something a little more finessey. Little real natural colored spunk shad, 4.5 inch on just a regular jig head. Mid-strolling it real quick. That was quick. That was quick. Nice one too. Big ain't always better, folks. Here's if I'm trying to confuse you, there you go. It's a nice keeper. He did not waste any time with a mid-stroll. There you go. See you, bud. Natural shad, spunk shad. Just kind of barely twitching it up in the water column over those rocks where they're hanging out. And he smoked it. Let's try it again. It's a mid-strolling technique. Mid-strolling, over-strolling, strolling a minnow, many names. The most popular technique in the bass fishing world, going on well over 5 years now, if not longer. It's just that, it's shaking a minnow. Mid-water column, lower water column, upper, wherever you want it. You see real rod tips up, real tiny tiny taps, little ladyfish, little tiny twitches. Literally just that, shaking it, not twitching it, not popping it, not hopping it off the bottom, nothing like that. I got a loop knot on here, allows it to roll. Certain baits are designed to roll. Not only they kind of twitch mid-quadriqualm, but they'll roll from side to side. There it is. When they're on it, man, they're on it. You see all the baits I threw in here, and I caught 2 decent ones, nice ones on that big wing fluke, but you can see there's a lot of eaters in here too, right? And if you were trying to catch a box and coughing up little shrimp, they will choke. They will choke this right down the hatch. So, small adjustment. Just went to a 5.5 inch, so an inch bigger. Similar color, still mid-strolling. Let's see if it helps. There it is. That's a good one, eh? I like to keep my rod tip down. Keep trout from jumping like that. Golly. The minute you bring it up, they start jumping. Jumping means pulled hooks and escape. Another nice little keeper. Switching angles. Now that was on the bigger spunk shad, bigger bait. Just trying to generate bites. Junk fishing. Junk fishing 101. Kind of moving into this little pass right here. That's quick. That's a nice trout. Golly. Damn, it's a good fish there. It's a solid one. On the mid stroll. Golly, he just came up and choked it. Come on, buddy. Come on. Ooh, yeah. Oh, shit. Punked me. I quit reaching for him. There we go. That's a good one. It's an 18-inch fish there. Upper 2 feet. 18 and a half. See you, bud. Hey, y'all. It's Kyle with Inshore Edge, and we're doing a little recap on this morning. I kind of going to title this as junk fishing, trout fishing, junk fishing. And what I mean by junk fishing is a term that you can hear in the bass world going back a long time ago, referring to just throwing a lot of different baits. You maybe as you're going down a shoreline, throwing a worm, a spinnerbait, a jig, just trying to establish a pattern, throwing a lot of different things, having a lot of different rods on the deck. And so I like to do that in saltwater, whether it's trout fishing specifically or whether I'm just working through the marsh, fishing for whatever will eat, reds, flounder, trout, what have you. I like to always have a lot of rods on my deck here, and I can adjust accordingly, having different baits, different techniques. Some of the techniques are very different, top, bottom, in the water column, what have you, different colors, different actions, all that kind of stuff. So today we were at Katrina Reef. And Katrina Reef is a very long reef. I don't know, I was gonna say it's a mile long, but thousands of yards long. It's got essentially you can fish it north and south side. Lots of current breaks, lots of gaps in there. It's just a really good fishery. Typically, depending on tide level, it's 10 to 8 feet off the rocks, and then the rocks kind of slope up to where you see the rocks on the top of the surface, like you'll see in the video. It is a community hole. Everybody knows about Katrina Reef, along with many of our other visible man-made reefs all along our Mississippi coastline. They hold a lot of fish. They hold a lot of fish year-round. Now, summertime trout fishing here, there's a lot less trout here than there is in the spring or the fall as these fish are moving through. But nevertheless, it does hold fish because typically it's salty. It's got good depth and it holds a lot of bait. So there is a population of trout there that stay all summer long, and I'm assuming they spawn out there. I don't really know, but so the reason I love it is because you can fish it 1,000 different ways. I mean, you really can. It's got the depth where you can fish different techniques, different depths. It's got a lot of structure that's got a lot of snags and things like that, so you can fish weedless type presentations. You can throw right up in the rocks. A lot of the fish, depending on what they're doing and depending on what the bait is doing, they'll be up against the rocks, they'll be off the rocks. It just presents so many challenges trying to figure out what the fish are doing. And it's just always a challenge there. And for me, it never gets boring because there's always a different way you can catch them. You can come back after you've caught them one way the next day, or one day you caught them one way. That might still be the bite the next day, but you can do something else if you want and still figure out something else. So with that said, today, so I started off early. It was very cloudy, low light conditions. I started off with topwater. Nothing was doing on topwater, or at least for the effort that I put forth. I threw several different sizes. Like I said, the 3 to 4 inch smaller. I threw some bigger ones. Nothing really doing on topwater. So I started throwing Zoom, 6.5 inch Zoom winged fluke. Pretty big bait, big wide gap. That's 6/0. Sometimes you can go to 7/0. It's a 1/8 ounce weighted wide gap. So you can tuck that close and make that weedless, and you can chunk that right up into the rocks. Let it coast down the face of the rocks, right down to where a lot of the fish will hang at the base of the rocks. Caught a lot of good fish, big fish on that big bait, and as you will see, I caught a few today that were in the 17, 18 inch range that also got that down, no problem. So, a favorite of mine, in a very specific presentation. Fish it really slow, letting it glide down. We also threw a free rig, which I talked about a little bit. That to me is it's a popular bass fishing technique that really is not used a whole lot in saltwater, and I'm just learning it myself. But I'll kind of briefly talk about it. But I think this is going to be another episode in itself one day. So essentially, you've got a sliding tungsten weight, cylindrical weight, slides up and down your line. It's free. See that? They got a little bobber stop there just to protect the knot and the plastic. I got a 4/0 wide gap worm hook. And then in this case, I got a Z-Man scented jerk shads. It's 5 inches. And I like that right now. The Elastec material, there's several other brands that have Elastec because it's buoyant, it floats. And so what happens, when you cast this out, it's compact. The weight and the plastic are together. Chunk it out, that tungsten, it's a 1/4 ounce, will sink to the bottom like a rocket. And then that line it'll ride up the line, and essentially getting separation between the two baits. And then now that plastic is free as it floats down, glides down. Regular plastics, not the Elastec, will sink a little bit faster, but still, it's all slow presentation. Let it go down. A lot of times you'll get bit on the way down, and then once you're on the bottom, you'll feel that tungsten hit, and you basically lift the rod tip up, and you'll feel that tungsten and the bait separate again, and then it free falls again, free rig. So I caught some small fish on this today, not any big ones. You won't see any fish on camera that I caught, but it still had value because I was able to junk fish my way to finding out what was working for the most part. And what was working was mid-strolling, another technique that I'm going to elaborate on a lot more in future videos. I'll briefly talk about it today. So essentially it's a jig head. A lot of these jig heads have 90-degree line ties and sometimes inverted more than that. In this case, this is an XPS rockin' shad. Like I mentioned, my buddy Chris Bush runs Speckled Truth. He's got into the mid-strolling, and he found out about this XPS rockin' shad. It's a winged fluke. See the wings? Really good bait. I just started using it. I've been using some others. So Started throwing this, as you'll see, and started getting bit pretty good in certain areas. Caught some good quality fish. Biggest couple were 18 inches. Caught some 16, 17s. I think I ended up with 10 keepers in the box. Not really in the box, I was letting everything go today, but still a pretty good haul for a summertime bite on this reef. And pretty much had the reef to myself. So, but that was the key though. And yes, that ended up being the dominant technique. But I was able to junk fish and utilize all the others to narrow it down to figure out what was working. Sure, I could have maybe guessed right and came out here with a mid-strolling technique. Mid-strolling, by the way, is kind of middle of the water column, just shaking a minnow, and the fish react, come up and eat it. It's a pretty awesome technique that we'll get into more later. You're certainly just Google mid-strolling or YouTube it and you'll find all kinds of bass videos. It's been the dominant technique in bass fishing well over the past 5 years. Won a lot of money in a lot of tournaments. But I could have just easily stumbled upon that maybe, I don't know. I could have stuck with top water the whole time and caught nothing. I could have caught just a few on that big old Zoom fluke. But utilizing the tool set, the tool bag on the front deck here, I was able to narrow it down and figure out what they wanted and be able to put a pretty good mess of fish together. So that's kind of what I liked to use that term, junk fishing. I like to use that overall technique when I get out here. It's not always something I do. Sometimes you kind of know how you're going to catch them based off where they are. But I think it's very important with our inshore reefs like this, when you've got a lot of different areas those fish can be. I used a lot of side scan today to kind of figure out where they were and then narrow it down from there. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned a little bit about the techniques, learned about just maybe expanded the mind a little bit about using different techniques to figure out what the fish are doing. And if you can put all that together, maybe you can have some successful trips in your near future. So again, thanks for watching the Inshore Edge. This is Kyle, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate it.